Welcome to today's episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat. I'm Karen Scott Green.
And I'm Kat Hardrick.
And we are here today with Sheriff Keybo Taylor. Sheriff Taylor has a distinction of being the first African American elected in Gwinnett County as sheriff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you to the people.
Thank you, and
That's
welcome
right.
to Conversations with Karen and
Thank
Kat.
you for having me. I really appreciate this.
Yes, and I'm so proud of you for breaking history, right? A much needed history. So Gwinnett is how old?
I couldn't even begin to tell you. I think, I don't even know.
I think it's the 1800s, and you're the first black sheriff. Isn't that something?
That is something.
That is something. Well, if you wouldn't mind explaining to our listeners, what's the difference between your department and a Gwinnett County Police Department?
Because a lot of people don't know the difference.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Well, I always start out by saying that it is the sheriff's office. It's not the sheriff's department. We're not an office.
Okay.
We are. We're not a department. We're the sheriff's office.
Okay.
I'm constitutional, elected, which means that I am the top law enforcement official in Gwinnett County, which is the same for any sheriff in any of the counties here in the state of Georgia. Police departments, I'll talk specifically here for Gwinnett County. They serve at the behest of the county commissioners, all right? Meaning that, they made the decision that they wanted the Gwinnett County Police Department, and they actually serve at the pleasure of the Board of Commissioners. So, where I don't serve there, our duties sometimes parallel. A lot of people think that the sheriff's office only... our only job is to take care of the courts and, take care of the jail. But actually, the number one task of a sheriff is law enforcement.
Okay.
And, just in Gwinnett County, since we have a police department, there's a lot of things that we do defer to the police department. But I had no idea how many... what my job description was until I got into sheriff's school. I was like, wait a minute, nobody told me I had. You know what? And I think some people start throwing some things in there since I was a new sheriff. It's like, you got to go in there, you got to do this too. Yeah, and it's like, wait a minute, I didn't read that in sheriff's school. So.
Yeah. So, what's some of the things that you realized that they were adding on to you, as if just like one or two little things?
You don't get me in trouble.
Oh, look, I don't want to get you in trouble.
That's all right. I give you one.
Yes.
I think this is an important one. When I had my meeting with the previous sheriff, and he was going over some of the things, he said, okay, you've also got this, some tasks that you have to do with Clean and Beautiful, Gwinnett County Clean and Beautiful. And I was like, wait a minute, I said, I didn't know and understand that, the sheriff had to,
partner with
Clean and Beautiful.
What role do you play with Gwinnett Clean?
Well, I'm getting ready to tell you.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, when I went back and I checked and I met with the people at Clean and Beautiful, this is just an agreement that the other sheriff had with Clean and Beautiful. It wasn't nothing that I was mandated to do.
Gotcha.
But basically what it was, my predecessor, man, anytime that they wanted to go out and move, homeless camps out and displace them and, whatever the case may be,
They use the sheriff's department.
they use the sheriff's office to go do it.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I told him, I said, I'm not doing that. I said, now, if you want, my people to come out, I said, we'll come out, not in uniform, not as enforcement, but, we'll bring some folks out from our mental health task force, our community outreach, so we can see, if there's anything that we can do to help provide some services for these people. Yeah. I said, I'll be more than willing to do that, but just to go out there and move their encampments, I told them I'm not doing it. But that's just one example that I got caught up with.
Because that's the last thing that someone who's unhoused needs is for the police to come out and
that part.
Yeah. That's not a good picture.
I agree.
That's not a good look.
I agree.
So you mentioned the mental health task force. What are some of the initiatives that began under your supervision once you came in office?
Just to highlight just a few, one thing that I did is when I came in office, I did away with the program that they had, the 287G program. And basically, without going into much on that, I think
explain that. I understand what it is.
Okay, the 287G program is a partnership that local law enforcement has with ICE, all right? And they provide you with the training and, the computer software to where anybody that has come into the jail, you can run them through their system. And if they're here and they're, undocumented, then they will put an ICE hold on them. And these folks will sit in jail until, ICE decided to do whatever they were going to do, either, move them through the system or whatever. I felt like that's a discriminatory program.
And it was.
And it is.
And it is.
And it still is. There's still some agencies that still participate in it. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that either. So
that's right.
And, but what I did do was took those resources and I started a gang unit and human trafficking.
Okay.
So those are two things I felt like, everybody's like, well, we're less safe. Gwinnett County is not safe because I did away with it. And I'm like, no. We had gotten to the point to where that particular program was an abusive program. You go out here and you find people and they were profiling folks. They see Hispanics out here riding around, coming off of a job site, and they pull them over for whatever reason. And the next thing you know, we got a group of people coming into the jail, for ICE holds. Yeah. So
sometimes would take months.
Right. And to me, I felt like those resources would be better used, to deal with gang issues, to deal with human trafficking issues. We started a mental health task force. Okay. I've always been and I've always preached that I feel like we need to start addressing mental health and mental health type incidences before they actually get to the jails. So that's what we're working on, man. We've been talking to judges, we've been talking to the prosecutors, to try to come up with, how can we best move folks along rather than bringing them into jail. If we find someone out here that's going through a mental health crisis, don't you think it would be better if we got that person into maybe like a crisis stabilization unit,
rather than bringing them to jail.
And then on the back end, not just turning them back out once they're stable, but they're going to need outpatient
support.
They're going to need job services. They're going to need maybe parenting skills.
Medication.
Medications, the whole 9 yards. And if we could come up with a program for folks like that. Let's just say if it's a 2-year program and they complete that 2-year program, then the charges are dropped.
Okay. So are you working in conjunction with the DA and the solicitor's office?
I was about to ask that, yep.
We're floating our ideas out there. Yes, we are.
And nonprofits. Because I feel like we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've had people on there who have mental health programs. They're mental health professionals that, in addition to the task force that you're creating, like you said, once they leave, they can partner with these organizations, and get funding so that they can have someone to walk them through that.
Exactly.
As an MST survivor and a proponent for mental wellness for individuals, I feel like
you threw out an acronym, sis.
Military sexual trauma, MST. As a survivor, I volunteer also with tons of military initiatives, but another organization, Wellspring Living, that addresses human trafficking as well. And so if we all step in where we can benefit, it shouldn't just be on the shoulders of our elected officials, and nor should the elected officials hold on to all of those resources, put it out there so all of us can work to that part.
Yes.
That part. Because the reality, you guys have a lot of money, and speaking of which, let's kind of segue into budget. What does your budget look like? Look.
What did she come up with? We have a lot of money.
Well,
I just messed up the podcast. Right there. It's like, what?
Well, I mean, as to date, Gwinnett County, may not you,
what is your budget?
Right, because Gwinnett County has 2-point-something billion of that. Like, what is the sheriff's department, and what do you see it being used as? How have you allocated those dollars?
Well, don't you have your own budget besides like what?
The sheriff?
No.
You get money from
my budget comes from the county commissioners.
Okay.
And let me say, I have had a very good working relationship with our county commissioners.
Okay. Yes.
They understand the needs. You know, when we come in, of course, you know, we've had to increase our budget, and we'll probably be looking at that again sometime in the near future again. But what you have is, again, you had the previous sheriff saw things one way. You got me, I see things differently. I want better medical, okay? I want body cams for my people. You know, I want, you know, better communications for my folks. I'm looking for, and I want better benefits for my people. You know, whether it comes in the terms of, you know, salaries, you know, health care, whatever we need to look at, we need to make sure, you know, that we're taking care of the people that are out here doing the work. You know, we also have a facility over there that's older. And there are certain parts of our facility that is deteriorating. You know, in the old building, what they call the old Plunkett building, you know, it's costing more, you know, to go in to try to retool that building and, you know, keep it to where it's safe that, you know, for the, you know, the, not just for the deputies, but for the residents that are there. I don't call them inmates, I call them residents. So the residents that are there. But we also have a tower that is starting to age, you know, and we just have to keep up with, you know, where Gwinnett County is going. My predecessor didn't see the need to have a training facility. All right, training is one of the most important aspects of this job, period. I don't care.
Where did they train at prior to?
All over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just not in
over.
Gwinnett.
Just, well, in Gwinnett, I think some of the farms is down in Barrow County, I believe, some other places, gun clubs, things such as that. And that's just not...
Places they had to, that the county had to pay?
We had to pay.
Instead of having your own
Exactly.
training facility.
So that's one thing that we're working with.
Right. It's like, child.
You know, that's one thing that
Always follow the money.
Right.
You know, and you know, when you look at it, like I said, you know, when you see things that's going on out here, just like the last incidents with Nichols, all right, I've always been of the mindset that before, you know, I blow a fuse when I see something, I want to know, one, is it a training issue or is it an intentional act? And of course, you got to deal with either way differently. You know, what were those people trained to do? Did they follow the training? You know, did they even receive the training? You know, or is it, and I'm just using that as one example, or that they just decided that today I'm going to go out here and intentionally, you know, go out here and do this to this guy. And so, you know, as the leader of an organization, you know, you have to make sure that you pin those things out. And sometimes, and I'm not saying that that is the case in this particular case, but what we have found in the sheriff's office here is that a lot of things that went on, you know, prior to us coming in was training issues.
Okay.
And that's why you like the body cams to help give you that information.
Absolutely. You know, anybody that is against body cams, I feel like they got something to hide. And I know. I'm
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but my brain was thinking, how much is your budget for your 2023?
I think it is, what, 143? Somewhere around in there. Yeah, that's a guesstimate. 143, 144.
Okay. And of that budget, how much is allocated towards mental health?
I don't have a figure for that.
All right. Okay. Because you were asking a question similar to that, and it came back into my head.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's okay.
But yeah,
that's okay. I wish I had more, but you know, we do have operations that we have to
account for.
But I'm sure it's on your budget. And I remember watching your department present to the chairwoman and the commissioners for your budget and stuff. So I know it's probably out. Not probably, I'm sure the items are out there for all of us to see. But yeah, I'm glad. That's a very good question. How much is it? Because mental health is so important.
It is.
You know, and I love the other departments that you have. You also spoke about community focused and socially, what is it? Conscious leadership. Could you unpack that? Like, what do you mean with that within your department?
Let me just break it down to just real simple terms.
Okay.
You know, my whole platform is where we have to come back in, where I feel like it's important for law enforcement. If you want to talk about any type of reform, we're gonna have to reconnect in the communities.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, and you start in the communities that has been what I call unrepresented. Okay, where's the distrust? Distrust is in the Black communities. Distrust is in the Hispanic communities. Okay, and others. You know, LGBTQ. Just anybody that I feel like is not in the mainstream of where folks have that mindset, whatever that mindset may be, that this is where your resources need to be. So basically, what we did is that we refocused. You know, we started going into, you know, what I call communities that previously has been unrepresented, or doesn't feel like that they have that same level of confidence in law enforcement as maybe, say, the white community does. So what we're trying to do is show that this is the sheriff office. This is an agency that is out here for everybody.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Okay. So we did set up a community outreach, unit to where, we have people that are going out. I think y'all have worked with some of our people on some of the food drives and some of the other
MLK,
things.
we came on out October.
So, those are the things that I want the people to see, us doing, other than coming to lock somebody up.
Right. Absolutely. So how do you personally stay connected? I know we briefly talked about that, but how do you stay connected now that you're elected? I know before you ran, you were involved in the community, but now that you're elected and you have such a huge responsibility, how do you remain connected to the community so people can see you and know who you are?
That's a loaded question. I just, and I was thinking about that, it's just a couple of examples, man, is who I am has to be who I am. And I have to be that same person all the time. And to give you an example, man, I went out to dinner last night. Well, I had two different groups of people come up. You're the sheriff. Yes, I am. So they have to see me. You understand what I'm saying? So how you see Keybo Taylor sitting right here, when I run across anybody, whether I know these people or not, it has to be the same. My demeanor has to be the same. My response has to be the same. Now, do I get that? Because, you're talking about 1 million plus people here in Gwinnett County. So that's the only way I know, is for, if you see me and you have an encounter with me, this is the encounter that I want you to walk, that's the experience I want you to walk. Like I tell young officers and young deputies out here, be mindful of your encounters or who you interact with. You don't know who you're interacting with. You don't know what's going on with that person. That might be the person that you need to call your commissioner to say, hey, look, you know what? I know that this is a sticky issue here, but, law enforcement needs this piece of equipment. Okay? Now, if they walk away negative, if you're sour, let that person walk away and, they have a bad experience with you.
That'll leave a lasting impression.
Absolutely.
Yeah, people may not remember necessarily what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Oh, absolutely.
That's right.
And it's unfortunate that every encounter is not positive that someone has outside of being arrested.
Right.
When they're dealing with law enforcement. A question popped into my head.
Can I say something? Even on an arrest, it doesn't have to be all negative. Right. I learned something a long time ago. I was a young officer. Long time ago. But there was a couple of people that I worked with. Back in those days, the police department had a warrant unit, and we used to go out and go serve warrants. And I would take it personal if I had to get physical with somebody to make that arrest, right? And fortunate, man, that I had two older veterans that I worked with, and I would sit there and I would watch them, and even if they got physical, in the next couple of minutes, you could see the de-escalation. Then you could see, Terry Honeycutt was his name. He was a master at this. Then before we got that person to the jail and got him booked in, he's having such a conversation with them. They're telling him, like they're informants. They're talking to them. They're having those conversations. And I couldn't understand that, when I was younger. But then as I got older and started spending time in CID, and I'm like, this is not personal. It's a job. So, if you have to get physical, use the force necessary that you make the arrest. But then when it's all over with, it's not personal. I had somebody the other day ask me, they said, well, how did you survive here in Gwinnett County? You got family here, your family's here, you're from here. Did anybody ever threaten you or, come at you? I was like, no. I said, because I, left people with their dignity. It's a big...
Yeah, it's unfortunate that I hear what you're saying, but because I even as a mother, I love you being transparent, but let's just keep it 100.
That's not everyone's experience.
My children, honey, in this county has had, literally, I had to come up 85 to pick up my child who was pulled over by an officer, and this was in the winter, and my child had on work clothes. And kids don't have coats. They just, they don't. And instead of letting that child sit in the back of your car where you still have control because they're in the back of your vehicle, if I'm not mistaken, correct? You can sit back there and not hurt the officer, correct?
Right.
You have my child on the side of 85. Is that not dangerous? And when I pull up to pick up my child, they refused to give my child a ticket to leave with me until they were able to run my tags. I'm transportation. I didn't do anything to break the law.
Listen, Kat,
that was personal to me.
It is.
That was personal.
I can tell you a very personal situation that happened with me. I was a lieutenant, at the police department. And one day, man, had just got my daughter had just gotten a driver's license, bought her a little piece of car, And so this particular night, Friday night, I told her she could drive and go to a football game. Well, she hit a car, And so she called me, and it's like anything else, man. You call dad, baby girl's crying, man. That's
you just
not
react.
Yeah, that's not good. So when I'm talking to her, I said, "Okay, baby girl, where are you at?" And she was like, I knew she was on Grayson Highway. She's like, "Dad, I don't know no more." I said, "Well, let me speak to the officer." And so I could hear him in the background. No, I'm not talking to him. I don't have to talk to him. And wouldn't talk. I said, don't worry. I said, I'm on my way.
Right.
So when I get there and this guy see who I am.
Now it changed.
Oh, the demeanor changed.
See, and that's what I'm saying. That shouldn't have to be. It shouldn't be that way.
The demeanor changed.
It shouldn't be that way.
So it wasn't much longer. I got transferred down to the precinct where he was working. And anytime I go into a precinct, I would always... Here's my do's, here's my don'ts.
Right.
Okay, if you don't do this, okay. And so one of the things that I said was, don't ever let me get a call from a parent. And I used that while he was sitting there as an example. It took nothing for that man to get on the phone and say, hey, look, your daughter's okay, she's not hurt. Here's where we're at, the whole 9 yards. It took nothing for him to do that.
That's the human element.
Absolutely. And it's fortunate that you had that experience and then you had that mentor in that officer.
Right.
But all too often, what we see when folks who look like us encounter the police, it is personal for them. Like it's almost as if it's an affront that they have to deal with us.
Well, and it goes back to, we've been in for 2 years, and I'm not saying that, we got the remedy, but I can tell you that's one of the things that we preach upon, is how do you treat people out here? You don't have to like folks.
Right.
But you need to treat them with respect.
Exactly. With respect and do a little bit extra. I can give you another example. I can give you the total opposite example. This was in September. I hadn't even gotten elected then. September, but when I was actually running, my mom had an accident in my truck. Right, she was upset. Now, if you want to meet somebody that is one of the most anti-police
your mom
person, oh my goodness,
get out of here.
Even hate the police. Hate the police.
What
right?
happened when you come home for Christmas?
Mama's bumping down the road with NWA.
You know,
Right. All right.
Man, let me tell you what, just no, no matter what, just couldn't get there, okay? I'll say this real quick. So anyway, she had the accident. The guy who works for me now, it was a deputy. It wasn't an officer. It was a deputy that showed up on the wreck, calmed her down.
Okay.
Took care of her, and so when I got there, and he didn't know that this was my mother. Knew nothing about it. So when I got there, then he saw and knew who I was. But I'm like, he did that. He took care of her. And my mom, for a month, that's all she talked about was how that deputy treated her.
Good.
Yeah, so, and so, of course, when I got in, I told him, I said, that's how I want everybody.
Yeah, to have that same experience.
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So, with regard to that retention, how do you retain your existing officers and recruit new officers? What is your game plan, and how do you give those initiatives?
Sure. I see where a lot of agencies are doing a lot to bring in, recruits and get folks into the door. Some of those techniques, some of those methods, I agree with. Some of them I don't. I feel like, what we need to do is make sure that we have a good salary and benefits. Okay, that's a start. Other people will tell you, well, they want good working conditions, they want this and that. No, people want to be able to take care of their families, especially now, coming up out of this pandemic. So I feel like that is number one. Number two, you got to have good supervision. Okay, good supervision makes for a good workplace. And then, make sure that we give these people the best training and equipment that we possibly can. That's where your retention is right there. Is when they come in, and if they make, I see, you got something going on in your agency, you got something going on in yours, but this is what we have going on right here in Gwinnett County. This is the place we want to be. And one last thing, I say this, and I know we're running short on time. We're not just bringing in people to bring in people. Okay, so my naysayers will say I'm running folks off. Maybe that's true. That just means that these people did not buy in, to the sauce that we're selling there. So they had to go, or, they had to go. But if we just bring in people just to fill a body, just to fill a seat, just to say, we don't have that many folks, then you're bringing in junk. And junk is going to get you just like what you got.
Right.
You understand you understand exactly what I'm going.
Do y'all do psychological evaluations?
Yes.
They have to.
I mean, because how these jokers get by? Don't talk about it, right?
Conversation.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another conversation.
Yeah.
How many officers are in your department?
Oh.
In your office, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I know he's not a department. That's good education.
86. Yeah.
860 officers.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got
And that's administrative staff of.
I think I'm allotted. I guess I should know that. Shouldn't I?
We're going to go to your website, check it out.
Go to the website and find out all of these statistical information that they're looking for.
And give them the website.
That your sheriff doesn't know. Okay.
Go ahead and give them the website.
I just wanted an idea in comparison to Gwinnett County Police. Like how many officers are in your staff compared to?
We don't have as many as police because
they're patrolling the entire county.
Yeah, like I said, the focus has always been on the police department, and I feel like that's been the focus for the last 24 years under my predecessor. So, and unapologetically, I'm going to say this, we're not going to be the stepchild. Okay. We're here, we're asking. We don't come out and ask for stuff just to get stuff, man. We want to make sure we got the same equipment, same training, same salary, same benefits as everybody else.
So other than serving warrants, do you have deputies who are out and about on the streets?
Yes, we have fill ops.
Okay. And explain what the fill ops would do.
Well, fill ops, it encompasses a lot right now, but those are the ones that are out serving fugitive warrants. Warrants, civil is now on the fill ops.
And civil would be if they have to go serve someone with
civil paper.
Civil papers.
You know, gang task forces under Phil-Ops, the mental health task forces under Phil-Ops, traces under Phil-Ops.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't ask this question. I'm sorry,
Go
Kat.
ahead. No,
but
you're good.
Because I meant to ask, how I used to do criminal defense. I don't do as much as I used to. And one of the things that always bothered me was care at the jail under the previous sheriff. And my clients not getting what they needed, being on prescribed medication before they got there, and then not being able to get medication once they got there, sitting there for days before anyone would look at them. How does medical care look differently under Sheriff Taylor than it did under the previous?
Sure. Very good question. What we did was, the company that was there when I came in in January. I fired them in July. Okay. Then we went with another company. Things got a little bit better, but then there were still some issues that we had. And what you'll see in this business, there's a handful of major medical companies that can handle a jail our size. I roll the dice. Okay. I took a chance on a group of, I met this group of young doctors, ER doctors. All of them worked in the ER. And you've probably seen this Viral Solutions, the ones that do the COVID testing. You see them around here. The company was doing the COVID testing. So I met these guys just by chance. And so we started having conversations, and you know, they came back, they said, hey, we're interested in getting into the business. And at first I was like, you don't want to do this because you don't have the experience. And then I got to thinking, you don't have the experience. That might be a better thing because you don't have
some of the institutional.
Exactly. So far, man, we hired this company. It's been gold. It has been gold. You know, they're responsive. They understand. You know, they got, you know, they kept the staffing levels up. You know, they respond to the complaints that we get in there. You know, there's going to be times when, you know, somebody may, you know, miss something or whatever, but for the most part, so far, we have hit a gem.
Well, that's good.
That is, because that really was an issue, particularly like if someone was on mental health medication, and then they get in the jail and they'd be sitting there for days.
And you know what?
I have a personal story.
But let me tell you something, okay? Excuse me, that's still a problem. That's still a problem. Even with us, that's still a problem, because when they come in, we do a mental health evaluation on these folks. And we do what we can there. But you got to go back and understand, this is a jail, okay? It's a jail, so it's only so much we can do. Sometimes these people might not need to be in jail. A lot of times, most of the time, they don't need to be in jail. They need to be Georgia Regional or somewhere.
That's right.
You know, they need to be somewhere else other than in the jail. So, you know, no, we're not going to be able to give them.
Right, because you're not a hospital.
We're not a hospital.
Right.
So, you know, we can get them in, get them stable, and basically what we want to do is keep them to where, you know, we can move them along through the system fast enough so that the judge can get them. That is one of the things I've said that's a problem is people sit there, if they're sitting in that jail a year, you know, 17, 18 months, and they need that.
That was not an uncommon thing.
It's not an uncommon thing. We had some folks that have been in that jail for years. Years and years, and it's just they just caught up in the system here. And you know, we had a young lady that died in the jail, and she had, you know, just decompensated so much that, you know, it was nothing that, you know, jail was not where this lady needed to be. So again, I get what you're saying, understand what you're saying, and you know, we're gonna have to look at some things differently moving forward.
Yeah, that's something that definitely needs to be addressed. Well, the last question that I wanted to ask you, that I always ask folks, your mental wellness. How do you take care of your mental health in the role that you are in? What's your number one go-to? Because like I said, I believe in that, and I want other people to know that they're not alone with managing their mental wellness. Yeah,
well, I know it doesn't look like it, but I like to go to the gym. Okay. That's a stress reliever.
You watch
me.
People work out?
I'll go ahead.
I'm just kidding.
Well, I got a good workout today.
I'm just playing.
See how she played off on me like that? She's like, I agree. You don't look like you go to the gym, man.
That was a good joke. I'm the Costello to your Abbott today.
She got me on that one there.
You know what? Good, Sheriff.
Yeah, but no, I'm not sheriff material right now. We got to work on that. But if I had to say one thing, is I had to just change my whole attitude toward everything. And you find what is your happy. My happy right now, to be honest with you, is like spending time with my grandkids.
I know that's
if it's just 5-10 minutes, lay eyes on them, watch them run around, do a couple of things, that's a rejuvenation. It's like, okay, I can go back out and I can go deal with some stuff and I can move on. But I would say, those are, and I mean, prayer always, you can't get by a good prayer. You can't. I don't care. What's going on, a good prayer is always going to make it a lot better for you there.
That's right. That's good. Well, thank you again. First Black Sheriff Keybo Taylor of Gwinnett County.
Yes.
She just said that to make up for that last time.
That was shady.
That was shady.
That was palm tree shady.
You saw that? You saw how she talked about this?
Sheriff. We like to have fun and
man, I don't remember that.
And I want to thank you for coming out to the food drive. Thank you for coming out to the food drive.
Oh, come on, man. I got your support. Anything such as that right there. I'll get up on a Saturday morning and I'm there.
Yeah. A cold Saturday morning.
Yes. Yeah. We look forward to having your community outreach team on our podcast.
Absolutely.
Yes. Definitely. All right. But thank you again, Sheriff Taylor, for joining us for this episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat.
Well, we are impacting the world one conversation at a time.